Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. Now this week's tutorial will be once again a bit different from the norm. I essentially am going to be making a mount for my tablet because the camera on my tablet is actually better than the current video camera that I have that's portable. So I went ahead and I picked some products at the hardware store, all for under $10. I went to the dollar store and picked up some bolts in case I needed them. I needed a Sharpie marker. I actually also bought extended bolts that fit onto a tripod mount. I believe they're 1/4 of an inch or 1/4 in size, and those fit perfectly into the tripod mount. Once I had that, I actually picked up a floorboard sample for 47 cents. And with that, I was able to essentially build the mount for my tablet. And it screws into my tripod no problem as well. So what I started off by doing is I started off planning out the 2 holes that I would need for the bolts. Now, in order to actually stick the bolts inside, because I didn't actually purchase also the corresponding bolts, or the nuts for it, I actually used a screw that I had and put that in there, hammered it in and glued it in really good to keep it inside the hole that I had just drilled. By doing that, essentially I was able to glue it then afterwards into the bolt so that the bolt doesn't move with time. So it was very simple. It did require a bit of finessing. I had to expand the hole a bit because I didn't have drill bits that were large enough, unfortunately. If you have a larger drill bit, obviously this is going to be a much easier process because I had to tilt my drill in order to be able to put it in properly. But eventually it did fit, so then I was able to hammer it in, and then I was able to use a lot of glue gun glue to make sure that it stayed in place, because obviously I don't want this coming off with time. Now I know ahead of time that I'm going to actually be reinforcing it quite a bit as well with more glue gun glue, just to make sure it doesn't pop out accidentally. But there you go. I'm putting one on the side and one on the base so that I can actually tilt my mount whenever I want to get either a landscape or a portrait video recording. So this makes it a bit easier to work with. So once that's in there, then I went in and used the glue gun glue to keep it all together. So obviously I had to wait for that to heat up before I could actually do so. And once I was heated up, I just literally filled it up as much as I could, every groove and crack. And then I took some sponge material and cut strips out so that I essentially could make a base for my tablet. So this is going to prevent it from getting scratched over time or any parts from getting damaged. So I just glue gunned that to it as well. And this is really soft sponge, so it's not going to damage anything. You can use, there's a variety of different products you can use. I happen to have sponge, so I wanted to try the sponge. But you can also use the kitchen mats that you can get that are actually really foamy but very thin. If you want something that will actually have a good amount of traction, then that works probably a bit better. It's also much thinner, it's not as big. So if you don't want it to be as noticeable, then that might be a better option for you. So right here, I took my measurements for my tablet, and I'm just measuring everything out so that I know how long to cut everything. So obviously I want to make sure I have the right dimensions for everything. And once I have the right dimensions, then all I'm doing is I'm using a pair of shears to actually just cut the plastic. This is actually a plastic lining that's used, I believe, for door frames or something similar. A huge portion of this you can get for about $3. So that was actually probably the most expensive item. The bolts were about $1.50, and I bought 3 just in case. I knew I only needed a maximum of 2, however. And then with the $2 store items, once again, and the 47-cent item, everything came below $10, which is awesome. You can buy pre-made mounts, and then that would work fine as well. I chose to do it this way. Once again, I'm drawing out where I'm actually going to put in my screws so that I know where to drill. And I realized at this point that I would need actually extra padding because I'm going to have to extend it out a bit. And I cut off the excess so that it wouldn't be overhanging too much. And I pre-punched the holes with an awl. And then I used screws to actually screw it into place. And I believe I was using washers also to help hold it together. So I just drew a line there so that I could make sure that these both line up. That is very important because you want everything to line up properly. And if you have somebody that can help you out, it's really awesome. My mom was actually over that day, so she actually helped me with this filming. She was able to hold some parts in place so that it would be a little bit easier for me to actually work on this. So at this point, I'm adding elastic. This is a hair elastic. I had some lying around. Once again, these are really cheap. You can go to the Dollarama, get some. And all I did is I added a bolt to keep it from sliding off and to make sure that it remains centered. And so I used the nut and bolt just to hold it in place. And this is something I'm going to do a couple times to make sure that there's enough support for the entire tablet, because I don't want it to accidentally slip out at any moment in time for obvious reasons. So it's important that you really secure it very well. Now these strips actually have adhesive strips on them, so all I did was peel off the adhesive portion and then mount some of the sponge material so that I would have something that was a little bit less prone to damaging my tablet, because obviously I don't want to scratch it up too much. So this is going to help protect it. I do recommend, however, that you use a much thinner sponge material next time, because the one that I was using was a little bit too thick. Even when I cut it thin, I had to really press it in there to make it a bit thinner, and it's also a bit more prone to coming apart. I would definitely use kitchen foam instead. That's used for underneath your dish rack or something similar to that, because those ones have essentially non-slip properties to them, and they work great for that. So I do recommend you use that instead. Now, although I screwed in with screws those bolts, I did end up also gluing in those side bolts to make sure that nothing came out. And that stuff is something you're going to want to do. You'll see it actually, I believe really shortly, you'll see me actually glue those in, because I'm actually almost done here. Yeah, so right now I'm reinforcing the entire area that I've added the screws in. You have to be very careful because this plastic has a very low melting point, and the glue gun glue actually does melt it, which is both a pro and con. I'm using actually my compressed air to help cool it down a little bit because I don't want it to become too soft, and I actually placed my tablet in place to help shape it temporarily while it's drying, to keep it from coming in too much. And I'm testing it out with an elastic band to see how solid it is as well. So we ended up using hair elastics just because it's more aesthetically pleasing. The elastic bands do work really well though, because they're much stronger. The only thing with latex is that latex does rot, so you would have to actually regularly change these on certain occasions just to make sure that they don't snap on you, because if that snaps, then you'll lose the very thing that's going to hold everything together. So at this point I've decided I definitely need to make a couple of modifications. So I've done some tests and I think it's a little bit wonky. So what I've done is I'm going to make holes onto the side and line those up, just so that I can add more bolts. And with those bolts I'll be able to put another elastic in there. So I did that in the center as well as in the top. Now the key to this is to actually offset them in the end, because if you offset them, then the nice thing about that is that you have it backwards and then you also have one forwards as well. So I just glued those into place too to make sure that they don't pop out. And I'm just covering up the screws once again because I don't want to damage anything, so that extra foam is going to help protect it. And doing another test just to make sure everything works. As you can see, I've used multiples of this. So I'm just going to show you how well it works onto the tripod. So I'm just going to show you how well this mounts onto the tripod. It mounts actually very well. It screws on really nicely. I didn't have any issues. So I can remove the mount, screw it into place, no problem, and then put it in. It holds the weight really well, and I can do it on the side as well. If you want to make it a bit stronger, then instead of using plastic, if you have pieces of wood, you could use those. You could even indent the wood in a similar fashion, and you can end up with a stronger structure. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.